Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you to the Force Design team for the opportunity to talk with you all. And I think this really does highlight how in lockstep DST is with our efforts around Force Design and the Force Design team. So I'm going to talk with you about some elements of what we do in Force Design, not all of them. Some of that has already actually been covered off earlier today. But what I will have a shameless plug, DST plug. I'm glad I'm not the first person to call it DSTO this morning, so thank you, Jason, for breaking the ice there. I shan't get in trouble. So many of you probably already know DST consists of 7 research divisions. One of those research divisions is the Joint and Operations Analysis Division, my home division, and we consist of 6 branches. 3 of them look at the individual or the single service domains, and then the other 3 look at more joint perspectives. So there's a Joint Capability Analysis branch, which looks at joint experimentation and support to operations predominantly. Decision Sciences, which looks at investigates a lot of autonomous piece and decision-making sciences. And of course, my branch, which is the Strategic Capability Analysis branch. So I have another slide for that. We consist of three groups. Those 3 groups are the Force Design group. It's led by Renee Kidson and currently being headed by Kate Rowe over here. We have a Strategic Analysis group, and we have the Technology Foresighting Futures group, which my biography sort of probably covered off on. This is a bit of a diagrammer of how we situate our work, and I will get on to how this is relevant to force exploration in due course. So essentially, we look very broadly at both technological changes, science changes, and more broader geopolitical changes, if you like, through a horizon scanning process. We use that to understand the strategic context. Then from there, analysing the defence capability implications and help that to inform decisions. So each of the boxes we see up here, such as emerging technologies, future environments, etc., are the specific work packages or areas that we work across that continuum. And we work with a range of science partners, both domestic and international academic partners, international Five Eye military partners, industry, and also think tanks. And we have a broad remit across government and defence. So, where am I pointing this? Get the next slide. Oh, there we go. So I'm glad Jason talked about the Force Design cycle, and I just wanted to use this as a bit of an example of where we, DST broadly, impacts on the Force Design cycle. And I was going to do this as a build, but don't worry, it's not a build, because there's actually too many boxes here. So if we just pick the next build. So these are all the areas that I see that we have impact and work closely with the whole Force Design division, and also more broadly capability managers across the Force Design cycle. So it starts from the concept frameworks and concept development, which we talked about earlier, a whole host of exploration activities and deep dives, really about understanding what the future environment looks like and what it means for defence. We have analytical expertise for strategic joint experimentation. We do single service experimentation that, of course, informs the higher level joint activities. We have deep S&T subject matter expertise. 2,100 researchers across DST is really what we're looking to draw on and provide that reach back for these activities. We do work in data analysis and visualization. And a product that we've done in the past is Program Viewer, so that was done a few years ago, but certainly looking at far more modern and more appropriate tool sets that help that decision-making process. Connected to that is the work we do on prioritisation and decision techniques and tools. I will talk towards the end about our strategic research initiative, which is on modelling complex warfighting, so I won't go into any details here. Provide advice around balance of investment analysis, metrics for valuing the capability. So that's into Pat Hetherington's branch. We endeavour, David, to help with lessons learned and capture and analysis. granted that with all these, given the breadth of the work, sometimes I will confess up front that the capacity to support all these has been challenging in the past. Individual capability managers are supported both through the single service branches, which I mentioned earlier, but also through the single services divisions that we have in DST. We look at technology opportunities partially through the Next Generation Technologies Fund or through just DST invested programs and feed that back into the cycle, as well as receiving guidance from this force design process into where we should be researching. So there you go, there's DST in a nutshell. As I said earlier, a lot of these activities have been referenced in previous presentations, so I won't go into any detail, and the team members who work in those areas, well done, you know who you are. Thank you. So what I wanted to go through a few slides with you here is really about technology and the exploration process that we use in DST to understand what is emerging and what might be important for defence. So we go through a process of broad horizon scanning, and that's not rocket science. That is just, it's a mixture of manual and automated tools that help us understand where publication trends are, what are emerging issues that are coming through. And from there, we generate capability cards, which even this screen is too small for my font, but the capability card, which the pointer is at the top right there, and we get input from either our 5 partners. I do acknowledge I've got 4 flags up in New Zealand, of course, important partner. The reason the 4 flags are actually there is we were looking at developing a 4-point MOU, but actually, as a result of the last TDCP principals meeting, we're back into the 5 community, which is an excellent outcome for us. So we are looking at how we share our information and knowledge around emerging technologies across all 5 nations. From that horizon scanning, we generate technology watches. Hopefully many of you have seen it. Happy to add you to the distribution list if you want to be there, but they're a short 10-page report of what's a technology area, why is it important, and what might defence do about it. From there, it leads to a range of deep dives. And one of the deep dives that I'll talk about in more detail is our EdTAS activity, Emerging Disruptive Technology Assessment Symposium, although it's not a symposium, it's actually a campaign of events. And the idea of all this is that we're on the front foot and we're able to inform defence about technologies when they need the questions answered, not starting and kicking the process off when the questions are asked. And so that's all along the bottom here in terms of informing FCHOC and future operating environment, informing the DCAP process, informing the defence innovation more broadly, as well as us producing some broader strategy documents for departments. So one of those that's there, second from the right, is Forward 2035, produced a couple of years ago, provides some constructs of consideration for, that was for the white paper. And what we're doing at the moment is an S&T Outlook, which is essentially a whole of DST report on what is important in terms of the science and technology domain that we see for the department. And so that's going to be finished by the end of the year. One, please. So EdTAS, I won't read the full acronym out every time. So EdTAS, as I said, is a broad activity for us to explore a technology domain or construct, quite expansive, that may have a major impact on defence. So we want to know why it might be transformational, what the impact might be, and then what do we need to do about it. So what we do, we bring internationally recognised experts, both domestic and international folk, together for that, defence representatives and a whole host of industry representatives together for that. And we have 80 to 100 people for the first event. And then we run a second event, which is much smaller, where we look at scenarios and really looking at the capability concepts that technology might lead to. So, and the themes currently follow NGTF, but I'll talk a bit more about that at the end. So let's move on to the next slide, please. So this is the campaign. The campaign goes over about an 8-month period, and we've done the last 2 events with Noedico, I think, are talking tomorrow. So we start with a shaping and insight studies, really looking at a field. What does it mean? Who's who in the zoo? Who's publishing? Who's producing products, patenting? What have you? What are the key issues and themes to take forward? And we use that to shape our thinking of how we design the event, but also to get participants into that creative mode of thinking before they get to the actual event. Then we run the event, that 100 odd people, where we bring people together. It's really a technology-focused, led event. So we're saying, what might this technology do for us? It's a mixture of presentation, engagement, and workshop activities. And we purposely design the workshop activities to really pull out the key themes that we're exploring. So from that, that leads to the military application implications. I mentioned this before. This is about contextualising it. How might defence use it, or how might it be used against us? We look at it both from a red and a blue perspective. And generally, we'll do this at the classified level, and we'll develop scenarios in close consultation with the military services. So the last two that I've run, which I'll go through in the next slides, we've done with Army in terms of developing those scenarios. From there, we can then identify some capability concepts that might be very important for us in looking forward. The step after that is wargaming it, and then looking at, well, to realise that capability concept, what are the science breakthroughs that need to occur? And that's the backcasting piece. So that's the continuum. It is a lot of work and does take quite some time. As outcomes from it is a big picture report. And I wished I had the big picture report from my last event here, but I don't. It's close to being published, Jason, I promise. But the intent is that we regularly have this report that gets it out into industry and academia to provide them with some understanding of our interest in a particular field. So next slide, please. I've spoken very abstract at the moment in terms of what concepts we explore and how we've gone about it. Next couple of slides, I really just want to talk about, well, what have we done so far and why is it useful? So the first one, which was in 2015, so I treat this as the pilot activity. We looked at trusted autonomy. What does trust and autonomy together mean? At the time, 2 years ago, it was certainly something that was foreign. And if you Google trusted autonomy, I think one DST report came up and that was it. So we, over 3 days, actually explored this theme. What does it mean? What might the opportunities be? And as a result of that, DST kicked off its Strategic Research Initiative. It's now about to launch a Defence Cooperative Research Centre on trusted autonomy. And there's been a whole host of industry, academia and defence activities and projects as a result of this. So that's some of the outcomes that can occur. And I think taking it even further, it will start to inform and start to give defence options for potential capability or amendments to augmentations to capability. So the other big piece is that we partner with the university in doing this. So University of New South Wales, we partnered with this event. And the next slide, please. So what we just recently completed was a series looking at information, knowledge and digital disruption. This was done with Melbourne University. And really what we wanted to explore here was, well, what is our relationship with information and knowledge moving forward, and how are we going to optimise that usage? It's going to be really quite critical for us in the coming years. Not only critical for us in how we use it, but then how might adversaries use it as well. And I often talk about the OODA loop, and there's a diagram at the bottom here that OODA loop 2.0 is about information, not agility, which drives life. DARPA has a whole range of projects actually running in this area, so it's actually quite a timely area. So the diagrams across the right here are particular technologies that we've been looking at. Human cognitive augmentation, haptics, there's a piece around biosensing, etc., Internet of Things, big data, whatever. Next, please. So this is just a capture of all the companies and bodies that we've dealt with. I have taken out all of the defence people. If I put up each of the defence groups, it would be almost all of them, I do believe. So we are really very broad about who we get for these events. So these are who's been to both events, or one of the two events. So it's been really broad, and the idea is to bring in actually some divergent thinking in to this piece. And so in fact, the next series, next slide please, the next event's going to be around advanced materials and manufacturing, and then the one after that in biotechnologies and human performance. That'll be later next year, materials manufacture later this year. So give me a call if you are interested in either of those activities. Quickly, I just want to run through both our Next Generation Technologies Fund, 2 slides on that and a couple of slides on our Strategic Research Initiative. So I will be quick. I'm getting the wrap up. So Next Generation Technology Fund, the first part of this slide is pretty straightforward. Essentially, it's being driven by the triad of force design, capability needs, as well as the technology foresighting. The EdTAS piece that I've just spoken about is that technology foresighting piece, and in fact, it's joined at the hip with the force design activity. That is what essentially drives what our Next Generation Technology Funds will invest in, and hopefully provide guidance to Benjamin and his activities as well in Innovation Hub. So for the Next Generation Technology Fund, we have these 7 programs that sit under it of grand challenges: the Defence Cooperative Research Centre, University Research Network, Strategic Research Program, a SIBS, a Small Business Innovation Research Defence activity, Defence Research Accelerator, and the Defence Technology Foresighting. So essentially, when you look at the NGTF program, it'll be according to those programs. Just go to the next slide. These are the areas in which the Next Generation Technology Fund are currently investing in and currently running according to those programs. So these 9 topics are what's there in the industry policy statement. This Next Generation Technology Fund, just quickly on our Strategic Research Initiative, because this is an opportunity for me to highlight what we're doing in terms of longer-term research for modelling complex warfighting situations. This is a program that we've, next slide. This is a program that we've set up just recently, just kicking off this financial year. The idea is to develop the science base behind, or help evolve the science base, I should say, behind how we do joint experimentation, simulation, wargaming, etc. So it's broad. It does draw on JOAD's experience. So the Joint Operations and Analysis Division is about 270 people, and all areas are contributing to this area. And the objective is to look at analytical approaches to aid effective decision-making to balance resource constraints with the future force composition and employment. So my last slide, this is the 4 major thrusts for the Strategic Research Initiative of conquering uncertainty, simulation, knowledge synthesis, and modelling complexity. And then we have arranged 6 different strategic activities that are specific programs. So this is, the reason I put this up is that we're just kicking it off and we are looking for industry and academic engagement across the board here. And there's a few people in the audience here that you could probably talk to, including Kate Rowe and Ivan there, Grivanovic, certainly involved quite closely with this program. So that's all I have for you today. So thank you for your time and attention. I hope you found that useful, and more than happy to expand on any of the things I've presented here in afternoon tea, for example. So thanks very much.